Good morning, second graders. It's Miss Garcia here. And as promised, this is your second ELA video for the day. In this video, we are going to talk about some lessons that we are going to do in our new ELA curriculum that are called Reader's Workshop. So what is a Reader's Workshop? Reader's Workshop is where we are going to learn about all the strategies that are going to help us to be the best readers that we can be. We're going to learn about stories from all kinds of genres, and we're going to learn about what makes each genre so special. And that's kind of a tricky word, an even trickier word to spell. We're going to learn new vocabulary words, and we are going to have tons of fun. So the first genre that we are going to be reading about, it's informational text. That means it's factual. It really happened. It's not a made-up story that someone is telling us. And the type of informational text that we are going to be reading today is called a personal narrative. One thing you're going to find out about me is I love to look at the meanings of words and take apart on different words and figure out what they mean. So let's look at personal narrative. Well, personal means that it's personal to you. It's yours, right? And narrative is a story. So a personal narrative must be a story that someone is telling about themselves or about something that happened to them. It's personal to them. So it's going to be written from the first person point of view. So the narrator is going to be the one telling the story, and the story is their story. It's their personal narrative about an event that happened in their own life. So when we use these stories in our reader's workshop, each one of the stories is going to teach us about a tool or a strategy that's going to help us become better readers. So for this first story, we're going to talk about how good readers use the central idea of a story to help them use the information that they're learning in the text. I know I just said a lot of words. You're going to get anchor charts. So this is an example of one of the anchor charts that you're going to be using for every story. And they're going to help us organize these tools and strategies. So today we're going to talk about what is a central idea. So when authors write informational text, and informational text is just another way to say nonfiction, right? It's text that has lots of information in it, factual information. When they write informational text, they usually have one important main idea or central idea that they want their readers to know. So look at the anchor chart on your screen. At the top, the heading says central idea. So we know that this anchor chart is going to be about central idea. First, we begin with the topic. The topic is the person or thing that the text is about. So we start there. We need to figure out first what the topic of the text is. What is that person or thing that the text is mostly about? The central idea is then going to be the most important idea or point about that topic. You with me so far? So we're reading a piece of informational text. We're going to figure out what the person or thing is that that text is mostly about. And then we're going to figure out what the most important idea or point is about that topic that the author wants us to know. So I've put a little note down at the bottom of this screen. It says this is called an anchor chart. You will receive copies of anchor charts in your home learning kits, and we want you to glue them into your red reading notebooks so that you can refer to them when you are working. So you won't have these from this week because you're not picking up your home learning kit materials until Friday. But starting with next week, you will get versions of these anchor charts, and they will fit perfectly on one sheet in your red reading notebook, and you'll use a glue stick to glue them in. And then that way, when you are working, when you are reading, and you need to remember what these tools and strategies are, you'll have the anchor charts in your notebook. So, like I was saying, first the topic, then we figure out what the most important idea or point about the topic is. And in order to determine the central idea of a text, we need to know what the topic is first, right? They go in order. So first we find the topic, and then good readers determine or figure out the central idea of the text by first figuring out the topic of the text and then looking at the supporting evidence. Supporting evidence, that is just the small pieces of information or details that are going to tell us more about the central idea. And these details may be facts or examples. So when we read the story that we're about to read, we're going to practice identifying the central idea of the text. And then we'll look at some supporting evidence. Well, first we'll figure out the topic. Then we'll look for some supporting evidence to help us figure out what the central idea is. All right, so let's go to our story. And again, kiddos, this is a personal narrative. The narrator, the person telling the story, they are telling the story about something that happened in their life, about an event that happened in their life.
Short read. We are super citizens. My dog Bailey is the best. When we learned about good citizens in school, my teacher asked us to think of ways we could be good citizens. I thought about Bailey. She's friendly and gentle. I just knew she could be a good therapy dog. First, I found a dog club near where I live. My mom and I took Bailey there. Bailey took a test to see how she behaved. She was calm and acted well with strangers. She listened to commands. After some training classes, we became a therapy dog team. Now my mom and I take Bailey to visit people. Bailey gives them comfort and love. I like raising a therapy dog. We are good citizens together. Bailey makes a difference in the lives of the people we visit. She helps make their lives better. Fast fact: therapy dogs are not the same as service dogs. Service dogs are trained to provide a certain kind of help for a person with special needs.
Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint. So we have read our text. We know it is informational text. It's a personal narrative. The author is a young boy. He's telling us a story about an event that happened to him in his life. So now that we've read the story, now we're ready to figure out what the topic of the story is. And remember that the topic is the person or thing that the story is about. So what is the topic of this story that we just read? Who is the story about? Take a few seconds to think that over. Okay, so the topic of this story, the author and his therapy dog Bailey, that is who this story is about, right? Do we know the author's name? No, we do not. We do not know the name of the little boy, but that is okay. We're going to refer to him as the author. So the topic of this story is the author and his therapy dog Bailey. So remember we said on a previous slide that in order to determine the central idea, we must know what the topic is first. Okay, we've done that, right? We have figured out the topic of the text. And now we're going to begin trying to figure out what the central idea is. So now that we've determined the topic, we can figure out the central idea. Remember, central idea is that one main important idea that the author wants us, the readers, to know about the topic. So we are going to look for supporting evidence. we are going to look for important details or facts about the topic that might lead us to the central idea. So, when we're reading, we can ask ourselves questions. And we're going to learn more about this week as well. We can ask ourselves questions before we read, while we're reading, after we read. Well, since I've read this story and I'm thinking about our essential question this week, how can being a good citizen make a difference to others? I'm looking at the title of the story. We are super citizens. So I'm thinking that maybe the author really wants us to know something that has to do with the author and his therapy dog Bailey being good citizens. Why are they good citizens? How are they good citizens? These are all questions I'm asking myself that might help me to figure out if that's the central idea. So I've come up with a couple of questions. What do the author and Bailey do as a therapy dog team, and what evidence tells me so? Well, when I read the story, I figured out that they visit people and they give them comfort and love. That's what they do, right? As a therapy dog team, they visit people, they give them comfort and love. The evidence that tells me that's true is because it says in the story that the author and Bailey make a difference in the lives of the people they visit. They make their lives better. I also used the photos, and in every single one of those photos, the people that are with Bailey, they're smiling, so they're happy, right? Bailey is making them happy. Those are facts and details that are in the story. That's some supporting evidence. Okay, you with me so far? We read the story. We figured out the topic of the story was the author and his therapy dog, Bailey. Now we're taking the topic and we're trying to figure out what is it exactly? What is the most important thing that we should be getting out of this story? Why did he write this story about this event, himself and his dog Bailey? What is so important about the author and his therapy dog Bailey and what they're doing? Think about that for a second. What is the most important thing that we learned about the author and his therapy dog, Bailey, from this story? Okay. Do you know the central idea of the story? Did you use the supporting evidence in the story to help you decide? What is the central idea of the story, kiddos? What is the most important detail that the author wants us to know? And this is how I want you to answer questions, okay? So if I ask you what is the central idea of this story, you're going to restate that question in your answer and tell me, I think that the central idea of this story is, and then you'll finish that sentence. And my answer that I came up with that I think is the most important detail, the most important thing that the author wanted me to get from that story is that therapy dogs and their owners are super citizens because they go through training to give people comfort. Or you could have said to give people comfort and love. I think, based on what I read, right, that the most important thing the author of that story wanted me to know from that story is that therapy dogs and their owners are super citizens. And they're super citizens because they go through special training, right? And they give people comfort and love. They make a difference in people's lives. They make their lives better. You all did a great job today. And this is something we're going to continue to work on in other stories. We're going to review this and go over it many times and practice it many, many times. This was just a first lesson to get us started. So you have some worksheets to do this afternoon. They are in Schoology, attached to an assignment. There's 3 of them that have to do with spelling and phonics. So you'll do those this afternoon. If you want to talk to your parent or your grandparent or someone that you're with today a little more about central idea, or maybe read a book and see, or a passage somewhere and see if you can figure out what the central idea of that is. That would be awesome practice as well. You guys did a great job, as always, and I will see you soon.